This is Melé, we're in my studio in West London, and today we're going through my track, the Ritzy. I had the sort of idea of the label for maybe about a year and a half. It was kind of just getting the right music together, really, because I sort of wanted to launch it with something which was going to be a sort of real representation of where we were going in the new year with the label and stuff like that. So I kind of came up with these 2 tracks pretty quick, actually, because I just got onto Ableton, and the first one I did actually was the Ritzy, because I was making music. I built up about 15 tunes from maybe summer last year until now, and I scrapped all of them, and then I did these 2 in about, well, the Ritzy, which you'll hear, and I did the B-side in about 2 weeks, I think. So I mean, I just knew as soon as I'd done them that it was going to be the first thing for the label. So I mean, I've always tried to do different stuff. I mean, my music always represents what I'd go and DJ on the weekend. So that can be from house, techno, grime, fucking jungle, whatever. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of a mixture between all these sort of things. Like, the last track I had out was a grime track with a MC and stuff on. So this one I sort of wanted to go and do something which I was playing in my sets at the time. I was playing a lot of old like rave bits, a lot of like R&S and techno sort of stuff. So I sort of wanted to do a 2-tracker which was still in my style, but just trying some different ground, really. Yeah, do you know what? I was actually hoping someone was going to ask me about that. Basically, the Ritzy was a club in the town I grew up on the Wirral. So there was a club called the Ritzy in Bromborough, which was sort of where my aunties and uncles would go when I was younger. I mean, it's not there anymore, but it was kind of like, you can go on YouTube and you can type in the Ritzy and it'll be like Living Joy performing Dreamer at the Ritzy or something like that. So I just thought it was a kind of cool name, really. This track actually started from a Future Music sample CD. I forgot which one it was. It was maybe one in the summer, I think, something like that. And this is the first track I've actually made in Ableton, because I was using Logic X for a couple months, but I just didn't really like the flow of it. It was kind of just slowing me down and stuff. So I think I was on a train going to a gig, and I found this sample on the CD. Which I really just like the sort of sound of the first note of that sample. So I took that and arranged this little loop which I had going. Arranged them together, and then I was playing with the envelopes that are in this little bit of Ableton, just because it was getting into new software and stuff. It's kind of nice just to be able to find different ways of working when you're so used to working a certain way. I came up with this loop which I thought might actually be kind of cool to use as a sort of riser in a track or something. That was sort of my idea with it, I suppose. Because I'm so used to just sort of pressing down on a key and having like a riser that goes up, and just something really boring. So yeah, it just kind of came out of boredom and just experimenting, really. And then there was another another sample of that CD as well, which sounds like this. Which actually did the same sort of loop as the loop that I've made. So I put them together. Had the transpose going up again on the envelope, and then I just put these 2 together. And just like kind of how weird it sort of sounded, and I thought it was just like a bit odd, basically. So with that sample, I started messing around with a plugin called Bloom, which is by FX Mansion, which has really become a big part of my sound, I suppose. It's basically just like a sort of modulation, tape delay sort of thing. There's a lot of different sort of features in it. You can get really, really deep on it, but to be honest, I haven't really got that deep on it. I sort of just use it as a delay. Even if I'm putting stuff on like hi-hats or snares just to sort of sit in the background to fill out tracks, I sort of find that's a good way. I know some people will use like reverb to sort of fill up spaces and stuff, but for me, I sort of seem to use Bloom a lot more, really. So that sort of started like that and became a build-up. And I just started opening the feedback on that, and you can get some like really, really mental sounds. I'll show you a bit more of that later on, but it's kind of weird, this track, actually, because usually I would normally always start a track with drums, like always. So like I say, it's just sort of nice getting into Ableton and starting to get into like new habits of things, and not getting, because once you get stuck in the same old thing, it can be a bit your ideas can get a bit stale, I suppose. These were the first drums I got. I kind of wanted to make it a lot easier for me to mix, because my tracks, a lot of the time, I sort of overcomplicate them a little bit, which is kind of annoying, because I always kick myself when I'm DJing because I can't mix them very well. I usually start with like some sort of weird drums and like something which makes it impossible for myself, really. So I started just with these really simple sort of, just a little simple hat loop. And then I found out these sort of old school breaks, which I put in there. So I basically had the idea of making this track a sort of massive, sort of warehousey rave track, and sort of how Liam Howlett used to do in the first Prodigy album, especially, how like everything seemed to be like drenched in reverb, but didn't ever sound sort of weird, because I think there's sort of a bit of a thing where you're not meant to put reverbs on kicks and stuff. People are a bit like, so I just started experimenting with that sort of thing. So just really simple drums to start off with, as I say, and then the break. So yeah, I just wanted to make it a lot more easier for me to mix it, or other DJs to mix it in, really. I come in here at 32 bars with the same sort of drums, but I completely drench them. I completely drench them in Bloom, as you can see there. Like, can come up on the feedback a lot. You get the sounds can be a bit the sounds that you get out of this plugin can be a bit too much at times, but that's where we went with that one. And then yeah, just sort of the build up, really. That I sort of made the whole first intro as a build up, sort of keeping with like the rave theme. I had like these stabs in, just drench that just in the Ableton reverb. I've got a few UAD reverbs as well, but to be honest, I never really use them, because I just think the Ableton one, for what it is brilliant. I just think it's it's more than good, really. So that's just building there, and then I kind of found one of them old rave videos of maybe like Fantasia or something, and it was just like a load of people sort of on camera talking after the rave, and this was the sort of sample I got.
Music's always good from Fantasia.
Is Fantasia the best?
Yeah. Definitely.
Are you guys going to stop ever, or are you going to keep dancing forever?
I'm keep dancing forever, me.
So I just took that little end bit there and used that as the I don't want to say the drop, but the little bit before the drop, I suppose, to sort of lead into that. So building up to that, I'll just play what all that sounds like. And then I came in with some 909 snares here, again with just the same, able to reverb on. So yeah, that's sort of the intro, really, I suppose. I didn't really want to do it sort of how a lot of maybe dance tracks are, where they're like intro, breakdown, load of white noise. Sort of, I kind of wanted the intro and the build up just to sort of merge into one like sort of weird thing. Where the drop comes in, I suppose that the natural thing for the track to be would be for it to go sort of, I mean, the track's 134, so I suppose like the natural thing for it to be would be kick clap as the sort of like housey sort of standard sort of thing to do. But I decided to confuse myself even more and do some sort of half-time drums on it. So I kind of like doing half-time tracks at sort of house tempo. I think there's something like really strange about it. So I came up with these drums, again, really, really simple drums, because that's how I really wanted to keep it. Nothing really major done to like the kick or anything. I think it's very important to choose sounds that sound good anyway, rather than like overcomplicating things and ending up with like channels full of compressors and EQs and stuff. I mean, I think it's just a lot easier just to sort of get sounds that sound good anyway. So I had them. I'm just low cutting everything. It might sound really obvious, but anything that you don't want in that sort of bottom end, like hi-hats or percussion or anything, I'm just low cutting all of that. So I had that, and I had the kick following the same pattern as that synth that I had. So it kind of gives it like a really weird sort of rhythm to it, which I kind of like weirding stuff out in my tracks a little bit. And then I had this rolling shaker, which was from a bigger loop, and I think I just kind of cut it. And then yeah, on top of that, it was just sort of building layers up, really. I had this 808 snare, which when I listened to the master of the track, I really wish I would have turned the decay down on it, because it was just way too much, and it was kind of getting in the way a bit. It was kind of muddying things up a bit. That one there. Kind of wish I would have just brought it down to maybe like there or something, just to give it a bit of room, because. But anyway, that's how it turned out. It was weird when I actually heard the master after it. It kind of changed the sort of dynamics of the track a little bit. But I kind of like the low end. I'll get to that in a bit. But the low end was a lot better in the mastered version than the version that I had. So yeah, I was just building on drums. So there was sort of drums in there, which I kind of wanted to, yeah, as I say, just keep pretty minimal really. Once you start getting into intricate little, like sort of fills and stuff, you start getting lost about where the track's actually meant to be going. I'll just stick with the drums for now because a little bit further down the track, I had this cut up break. I think it was an old jungle break. Let me see if I can find the original. Yeah, that one. So I had that. I really liked the kicks and the snares of that. So I arranged it just to sound like this. Just low cutted it again, just to get rid of all the muddiness of it. And then mix that with the, I sort of had it as doing the same pattern as I had. And then all together it sounded like this. So that bit just comes before sort of the second breakdown, I suppose. Just to give it a little bit of a different sort of thing, I suppose. Just so people aren't getting bored of the same old sort of thing. I like to sort of to give people something that they just wouldn't expect, and it's kind of just a bit weird, I suppose. So the thing that ties everything together with this track actually is the bass line. It comes out of Monarch, which is in Reactor, and it kind of just started like just a sort of standard kind of sub bass, I suppose. And the way I sort of always do my bass lines is I'll always come up on the attack on the filter envelope, because basically when I started I didn't know how to EQ or mix the kick and the kick and a sub together when you have that initial sort of hit with a sub. So I'd always come up on the filter envelope, so the kick would deal with the first part of it and then the sub would follow after like that. It's just something I've always sort of stuck to doing, really. It's kind of a bit easier to do. So it sounds like a sort of standard sub work, really. If you're making sort of like bass heavy sort of or any sort of music really, but I'd really recommend getting Monarch. I think anyone who's got it will know as soon as the sounds just come in, they just sound like twice as loud as anything, and just really like, they sound like they're drenched in like loads of stuff anyway. They sound like they've got a lot on the channel anyway, but they're just they're just really nice sounding sounds. So this is how I'd usually do a bass chain, especially for a sub. I have max bass on it, just the sort of old Waves plugin, just so you can sort of hear it on a laptop or sort of in the car. Because I feel like when we're like in the studio or if we're playing tracks in the club, we'll sort of get caught up on how the tracks sound on these big monitors, but I think a lot of the people who sort of listening to dance music or whatever will be listening on little headphones or laptop speakers or whatever. So max bass sort of just brings out them top bits, I find, especially when you just put it on and have to play around with it. You'll get some cool stuff. Another decam thing, the envelope shaper, which just adds like a bit of bite to it. And then to finish off on the chain, I've got the RP distort, which can usually be like a bit harsh actually. I think it's a lot of the presets in there are meant for like sort of dubsteppy sounding things, which is not really my sort of style. But once you sort of get in there, you can tune it a bit. You can get some good sound. So I ended up just with this sort of. I kind of liked how messy it was. It was kind of like it wasn't sort of like a straight up sort of bass. So in the track, it sounds like this. So yeah, I just sort of needed that to carry the track underneath, really. I mean, when you play the elements that I've got on its own, it's fine. But once you bring like it sort of glues everything together. This was kind of actually a weird one because usually I'd spend a lot of time EQing the kicks and the subs or the main bass line, or usually I'd have for especially a sound like this, which has got a bit of like could have a bit of mid-range to it. But yeah, these ones actually just worked really well together without me actually having to do much, to be honest. So it's I think it just happens like that sometimes. So yeah, that was the main. The drum bus, which is, I'm always using this. This sounds like a massive decam sort of FX expansion plug, but it's not, I promise. But this, the decam bus comp, I think it's a pretty cheap one actually. But yeah, it's sort of like a very sort of big part of what I've always done with my music and stuff. I mean, I always sort of go to one setting which I've sort of edited a little bit and sort of played around with. But just to glue, I mean, it sounds obvious, obviously, but just to glue everything together. Sometimes I might run the bass line through the drum compressor, sorry, the drum bus, just to give it a bit more, just to fill it out a bit more. But on this one, as I say, it kind of just all fell together naturally with the mix, so I didn't actually have to do that. So yeah, just the decam bus compressor on the drums, and I threw all the breaks into there as well, and all the little snares that come in. Like I say, the track was very much a homage to that sort of, I suppose, like ravey b-boy type sort of stuff that I was really into. Obviously, I wasn't around at the time, but I was sort of got into when I was a teenager. But because basically the idea of the label, my label that I had, it was going to be called Quadrants after Quadrant Park in Liverpool, which was an old sort of rave thing. So I thought the first release, it would be really good to do a sort of throwback, big warehouse style sort of EP in my sort of style, I suppose. So yeah, that break comes in.
I'm your dancer forever, mate.
Comes in there heavy with the sub as well. Also, I might sometimes I'll do it a lot of times actually when I'm leading into like a drop and there's maybe like we have the vocal there. I will just stick a channel just running the last part of the sample. I mean, I obviously could just put a delay on it and sort of open it up and close it, but I like doing this sort of way, just doing another channel underneath and then putting just a simple sort of delay just to lead into it. So I had that delay doing the same thing as the it's like Run DMC sample or something. I'm not sure where it is, but.
I'm Pete Dancing Forever Me.
And some more other like sort of rave samples. So that bit is the more sort of, I suppose, sort of rolling, sort of, that might sound maybe a bit like an old, like, jungle-y dubstep sort of bit, I suppose. So straight after that, we drop back into the second breakdown, which is... just coming up on the sorry, just coming up on the transpose on the 2 loops again. Same sort of thing with the 909. And then, I mean, the thing is, when I kind of make tracks for when I DJ, but I don't play tracks that long when I DJ. But I kind of wanted to be able to make a track which I could play the full way through, and I could sort of play it in that sort of way. So the second main drop, I went double time on the instead of half time. Basically, just sort of rearrange the drums, and something as simple as putting a hi-hat underneath it, just to sort of break up the track. I mean, if it was going to do the same sort of thing as the first drop, then you sort of get a bit bored very easily. So I just decided to completely switch it up. Yeah, sort of more like a sort of B-more-y type thing on it. It's still got the same bass line underneath, and just rearranged it all, really, sort of in the way that I would do a DJ edit, because I started using Ableton originally to do my DJ edits in, sort of just cutting up tracks and whatever. So I had this second drop was sort of just a whole cut of everything in sort of like a cut and paste sort of way. And then just to confuse people a bit more, I go back into the halftime. Yeah, I go back into the halftime bit there. I had the break that was running throughout the track. Let me try and find it. It was the one I was just using for fills. I think it was that one. We were sort of drenched in the ping pong delay, I think. Yeah. I think that's really good just for doing like crashes and just that thing if you don't really want to get too deep into delays and stuff. I think the ping pong delay in Ableton's just like it's fine, you know. So that break I had running through, I basically chopped up. And that's time I didn't chop it up. I put it into. It's a very simple thing in Ableton, but you can, if you have a loop, you can sort of half the tempos and go up and make it however strange you want. So I put them in a few little bits. That's again. Oh no, I used the RP verb on that actually. This is a really good reverb actually. Especially if you're doing really sort of things that you need a lot of space with. So yeah, I just think that's a good thing. And then back straight into the. So yes, back here. So yeah, then back into the half time bit. But I didn't on that bit. I didn't come up in the first drop. I'd sort of come up an octave with the sub, as you can hear here, just at the end of. Just that it sounds great in that first bit, but I decided in the second bit just to keep it rolling underneath as just one note. I usually always go to Monarch for my bass lines, but sometimes I'll actually go to this. It's a bit of a weird one. People sort of look at it a bit funny, but it's just the Korg Electro. Is it? Yeah, it's the EA. But I just think like the subs in here, when you actually get down to them, are just like really, really, they just sound great. And it's got like some really crap sort of distortion in it, which you can't really edit. But I'd either use Monarch or I'd just use a straight sub from that, really. And then yeah. And that's about it on this track, I suppose. It's kind of the way I've sort of approached music is from like a sort of DJing background, so it's just I kind of like to not get too involved in sort of how to do what and what to do with certain things and plugins and stuff. I kind of just found my way of doing it and it works.
I need that forever, mate.
And then yeah, just the outro there. I try and get it sounding as good as I can without putting anything on the master, because I always end up like getting to the point in the mix where I just end up confusing myself. If I have things on the master, like I'll end up like figuring out if something sounds good, but if I was building into something, I always like end up like losing what I'm actually. Do you know what I mean? So I'll pretty much always go completely nothing on the master, I suppose. Yeah. There's a few things in Ableton which are the sort of audio effects racks. I like some of the ones in here, but to be honest, like I'd always send a track to mastering, always. I usually leave like a lot of sort of headroom, but I mean like Joker sort of told me this thing which I was getting so confused with like why my mixes were sounding so busy and stuff. But he had this thing of just highlighting everything and bringing like everything just down, and it opened everything up. And I was kind of stupid that I didn't know that. But I usually just do it like that, man. I think just put in as least as you can. I mean, I've recently just got the UAD stuff. It's not running today, but if I was using that, I'd maybe go for like the Culture Vulture or slotting, just to like, because some of the ultra maximizers in there are just like ridiculous. You know what I mean? But yeah, for my stuff at the minute, I'm just sort of. I used to use what was that plugin? PSP Vintage Warmer or something. I used to always put that on. It was good, but I always wondered why my tracks weren't sounding how I wanted them, and that was obviously the reason why, I think. So yeah, I sort of just do drum buses, keep it pretty simple really, and just yeah, I mean, I think once you start worrying about like listening to people, what I know you're listening to me now, but once you start like listening to people and buying the plugins that they have and doing it the way they do it, I mean, it's good to take advice, but I think you've got to sort of take your own bits of advice out of them. Do you know what I mean? And sort of figure out your own ways to do it, I suppose. So, yeah, that's the track.